colleagues Julia and Pamela, who will give us an update on the 2025 to 2026 outcomes. Then Gary will give us a brief kind of introduction into the new Equalities and Diversity and Inclusion Framework and the 26 to 30 outcomes. And then Ruth will be finishing the session with an update on the review that she's been doing on integrated impact assessments and what that will mean for us. That's enough talking from me. I will hand over to the guys and just let them kind of lead today's session. Thanks.
Thanks, Emma. For those who don't know me, I'm Julia Sproul. I'm in the Equalities team with Lucy, Gary and Pamela. And I've just tried to share my slides, but I don't know if it's showing up yet.
Not yet. It's got the wee twirly is thinking.
I can see it, Julia.
Is it showing in the right way? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, thanks. So I'll just start by talking about what I'm going to present on. So we'll start by talking about what we mean by inclusive communications. I'll say a little bit about the background and the drivers that kind of kick-started this work, and about the engagement and what we found out through that. I'll talk about what our interim outcome is, what we said we'd do when we established that, and what we've done to date. Just at the end, I'll talk about what our guidance is at the moment, welcoming any thoughts from yourselves, and also just say a little bit about our next steps. So, in terms of defining what we mean, it's important to know that communication isn't a one-way process, it's a two-way process. And so it's about people understanding the information that they get and also being able to express themselves in a way that they prefer to. And so that means looking at things like whether it's in person, online, in telephone, in writing, in alternative formats. And we've kind of taken this from an organisation called Communication Inclusion People, but we've discussed it with our colleagues, we've discussed it with disabled people's organisations like Fair Advice, Magic Egg Productions, and People First and others. And so this became our working definition. There was a number of drivers that started this work or prompted this work. First of all, we're obligated by law not to discriminate and to advance equality. But as a council, it doesn't make sense anyway for us to put groups of people at a disadvantage. It makes good business sense to break down the barriers that might currently be in place for some of our customers and staff. And we were aware that there was room for improvement in this area. But we also had it's a response to a motion regarding the accessibility of council information, and this was at Policy and Sustainability Committee in May. And we committed to make all communication more accessible and inclusive to the public, working in partnership with disabled people's organisations to develop actions. And there was other motions, such as one about barriers to elected office, which also identified the need for improved inclusive communication. At the same time, the Scottish Government in 2022 started a review of the public sector equality duties, and one of the things that came out of that was that they proposed at first to impose a new duty to embed inclusive communications across the work of listed authorities, and they've subsequently revised that to say that they will produce new national guidance, tools and training to support us to improve our use of inclusive communication. So with all that as part of our context, we then worked on the development of our new equality framework 26 to 30, knowing that actually we needed to make some immediate actions in the meantime to improve our inclusive communications. And so we set out to do some engagement, some desk-based research, and to also jump on the findings from the development of the new framework as well. So We worked with a number of different organisations. This isn't a comprehensive list, but people like Fair Advice, Sight Scotland, organisations like COSLA, and also our colleagues in our Scottish Council Equality Network and Scottish Government. We also worked with our comms team, and we discussed these things with our equality outcome leads from our previous framework, and also colleagues that are working with the Accessibility Commission doing work around inclusive communications. And we also liaise with representatives from Edinburgh's Strategic Partnership. We also had a round table in February of a number of colleagues who would either have an interest in this area of work because they needed to improve in this area, or because they had expertise that they could share, or because they were maybe working on a piece of related work in their specific area. And through all of that, we were able to kind of pull together some findings. I mean, even in our desk-based research, we were able to discover things like, and this is just one stat, but 99% of younger people aged 16 to 24 reported using the internet. Only 43% of people 75 and over were reported using the internet. So there's a clear differential there in terms of modes of communication. And 64% of older adults aged 60 to 74 with a disability reported using the internet, while 85% of older people who are not disabled reported using the internet. So we started gathering information like that showed that there were lots of different ways in which people were using different modes of communication. The things that we found out was that we really need to be aware of different communication needs. And even those with similar impairments can have different needs. We need to understand why those needs exist and understand the impact of our existing communication approaches. Consider cultural aspects in inclusive communications, and also improve our information on services available and improve or extend access options. So that would be things like ensuring places are accessible for in-person contact, or offering a range of ways to contact the organisation. We also gathered that we needed to test methods that would be adopted with help from others, from people with lived experience. And we need to simplify language and review formats, and review provision of translation services, and also use a trauma-informed approach. In addition to this, the findings from our scoping exercise showed us that we need to be accessible throughout the customer journey. So that is from a customer finding out that a council service exists, to knowing how to access it, to them being able to go through that process right through to the point of exiting. It also means we often talk about our services as being from birth to death, because there are services that are available for people throughout their whole lives. We definitely need to look at alternative access to services so that it's not just digital access. We have created a lot of improvements to our services by creating digital access, but for those people who aren't able to access services digitally, we need to have alternative forms. We need to be better at using plain English, and as soon as we're able to do that, we're opening up our communication to a much wider range of people. And we need to consider the tone of language, making sure it's sensitive. But also we need to be thinking about inclusive communications right from the beginning, so that we can plan ahead, plan the time that's needed for making sure that our communication is available, perhaps in different alternative formats or in different ways that meet the preferences of our customers. But it also means, if we think about it at the beginning, that we can budget for it, because inclusive communications can come with a cost. And if we don't budget that at the beginning, we run into difficulties later on. And then another crucial aspect of becoming inclusive is making sure that we involve user groups in the strategic development of inclusive communications from the beginning. So from those findings, we ended up with a clear outcome about making sure people find it easier to engage with council services, and that we have standardised approaches that improve our communications. And the main basis of meeting this outcome is the creation of guidance for colleagues. And so we met with our Officers Equality Working Group in March 2025, and we set out how we would do this. So we kind of split it up into quarters, saying that we would establish content for the guidance in the first part of the financial year, looking at setting up a user group July to September, checking with partners and finalising the guidance over the latter part of the year, October to December, and then running a series of staff sessions to raise awareness of guidance and reporting next year. So far, what we've done is we have agreed that the Inclusive Communication Toolkit Project Reference Group, which includes people with lived experience, might also be able to provide feedback on our own local guidance on inclusive communications. Now, that reference group has been formed for the development of the national guidance that the Scottish Government proposed that they would develop. So it makes sense that that same group will be able to provide feedback to us on local guidance, making sure that it complements the national guidance as well. We have worked with the Accessibility Commission, sharing the findings from our own evidence gathering and engagement activity to help inform their communications around improving physical access in public spaces. We have also commissioned a review of committee reports as part of our work to improve accessibility of those reports. So that audit and review is just coming to a close, and the findings will be available at the Policy and Sustainability Committee in December of this year. We also secured an opportunity to retain the expertise and willingness of stakeholders who have up until now provided invaluable feedback to the Council through the Edinburgh Learning Disability Advisory Group, known as ELDAG. And it was disbanding. So we've managed to get the Equality and Rights Network have been able to take up the role in continuing that engagement with members, ensuring that we can continue to have their valuable feedback. And we've also continued to engage with partners. That includes Scottish Government, the Scottish Council Equality Network, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and of course our disabled people's organisations, such as Communication Inclusion People. And we are making sure that our BSL plan is being implemented. We've got our next lead officers meeting in January 2026, and we're hoping to align the BSL plan more closely with the new framework. And as an immediate action, we've created an internal ORB page for colleagues to develop inclusive communications consistently across the Council. We're aware that there's an awful lot of information on the ORB, though, and that's why this guidance aims to kind of pull that together into a concise way that will help provide a more practical approach for staff who want to know how to improve their communications. And then lastly, we've already drafted key parts of the Council guidance. And this guidance, I've just put down our kind of general headings of what we're covering in this guidance. But basically, we want to make sure it complements the national guidance. We want to make sure what it contains will be helpful to staff. And we have liaised closely with Communication Inclusion People, who are the people who are leading on the national guidance. And we've drafted key parts of it, and we're preparing to engage with colleagues to sense check its practical usefulness. So if there's anything that would well, I mean, I'll leave it till the very end for people to have questions. But if there's anything that I'd be interested to hear from you, it's what would be most helpful to you in this guidance. And then lastly, our next steps, as I said, we will be engaging on the guidance with our staff and with our networks. We'll be aligning the BSL plan with the new framework. We'll be also continuing to work on improving communications, but this will be through feeding the work into the new outcomes. I thought that should say 26 to 30, I've just noticed. We'll be considering inclusive communications in the development of the Edinburgh Partnership Transformation work. We'll be running events to promote our guidance. I think I'd said the BSL officers meeting will be in 2026. So, and that's me finished the bit about inclusive communications. It's just one of our interim outcomes. So I'm going to hand over to Pamela, and I'm going to take down the screen just now so that Pamela can put hers up.
Thanks, Julia. I think Emma wanted to.
Yeah, just
Emma?
wanted to check. Are you wanting to take questions just now from people, or are you wanting to wait until the end? It's what's best for you guys, because I found that really interesting. There's some things there, Julia, that I'd like to kind of just pick your brain about a little bit more, if that's okay. And I wondered if we do it after each presentation, and then that gives
perhaps after Pamela's spoken, we can have a discussion about the interim outcomes, and then Gary can talk about the new outcomes, and we can have a chance to ask any questions after that as well. Would that suit? And then, of course, Ruth is doing the IIAs. I think that might work, but I'm happy to take any questions now if that's your
it's
preference.
just a quick one from me. You've said that you've got your OR page there. Can you send me the link to the OR page? And what I'll make sure is I include that in our consultation and engagement pages so that it's all kind of interlinked and stuff like that. That would be great.
I'll put that on the chat.
Cool. And I think Ruth had a question, but I don't know if you want to take that now or just wait till it's about easy read.
I'm happy to take
just go now. Ruth, do you want to come in and just ask?
Yeah, sorry, I'm actually in the car, so I was a bit worried about my connection, but I hope you can hear me okay. I'm not driving, I should say. That would be quite bad multitasking. It was a question about, it wasn't just specifically about easy read. I managed the accessibility. Oh, can you hear me okay?
You're kind of breaking up. Do you want me to cover or?
Sorry.
No, you're okay. Do you
I'll
want to keep going?
I'll keep going, and if it's bad, just if that's okay. So, as you know, I work alongside with the Accessibility Commission. I'm sort of the secretariat role for that, and it's come up quite a lot, specifically about things like easy read, which because we have representatives from People First Scotland on the commission. It's not just specific to easy read, but my question is around: will the guidance be prescriptive in any way to the types of communication we can offer to the types of people who need it? So if we say, easy read is a good format, especially for people with neurodiversity, I'm just thinking it might help us to focus on the different groups that we need to engage with the right communication tailored to that kind of need. But then again, I'm not sure if we're able to be quite so prescriptive, because it could be seen as being a bit I don't know whether divisive is the right word, so it's just a question, really.
Yeah, I think there might be an element within the guidance of acknowledging, as I've said from that statistic, people that might use the internet less and people that might use the internet more. We can make some generalizations like that, but we certainly wouldn't want to be prescriptive, because part of what we want staff to do more of is engage with their own customer base or their stakeholders more, and involve people with lived experience, people that are users in the development of their work. And from that, you would become clear about what kind of communication you need to focus on. If we were prescriptive, then it goes against what we were finding, which is that actually people can have the same impairment, perhaps, or be within the same group, but they would still have different preferences for their communication. So we wouldn't want to go down the prescriptive route.
Yeah, thank you. I did think that would be the answer, but it was, yeah, that's really helpful, Julia. Thank you.
Martin has his hand up. I think we're just doing questions now.
Yeah,
Martin.
that's fine.
Sorry, I hope that's okay. Thanks for that clarification, Julia. I can completely understand why we're taking a kind of sort of non-prescriptive approach. I can see that being very difficult for us in the kind of consultations we do, because we don't really have a customer base. In what we do, we basically go out with a scheme. So I work in active travel, a scheme that's in a part of the city. It can be different parts of the city, all over the city by its nature. And then it happens to be the people that predominantly that live there, but it basically is the whole city that then gets engaged with. Now, once we've done an initial piece of engagement, we do get people sort of bubbling to the surface that will respond to us and then would request particular types of communications. And we always try to offer, the happy to translate and all those types of things. But it means it's, in terms of trying to pitch that first consultation material, we're almost sort of nowhere. Because will the guidance have the really general principles of like, okay, we should be providing X, Y, and Z, so that we can try to hit as broad a base as we can, or maybe you've got other ways you'd like us to approach that.
I think one of the things will depend on how big the project is, what resources are already available for it, and then how much you would then dedicate to the inclusive communications part. So it might be quite hard to say yes for going out across the piece. You need to do all of these things, because that might take up all of your budget, and then you wouldn't be able to do the actual work that you're consulting on. Or but what we would really want to push at the moment is the use of plain English would be amazing for in terms of widening the access straight away. It's not something that has a huge cost attached to it. People need to know how to do it and need practice to get better at it. But it's something that if you start off with plain English, you're already going to be in a better position. Less people perhaps will need easy read or other formats. So that's what we would push in the first instance, is let's get better at plain English first. We are not very good at it at the moment at all. We can make huge strides with that. We do need to look at alternative formats in addition to that, and look at different modes of communication, whether that's in person or making sure that we've still got telephone available or whatever. So we do need to be looking at that too, but plain English would be the big one that I would be pushing.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we do say, like within like the consultation and engagement framework and stuff, plain English, tone of voice, and that way where we do say, if you're like, yes, an online survey is a great tool to get like the majority of responses, but recognizing that that doesn't suit everyone. So a lot of the time what you'll do is you'll support that with like in-person engagement events, that kind of thing there, or like going out to groups and having like kind of workshops and stuff like that as well. So there are like where like we know that like our colleagues are doing that kind of stuff and actually taking that into consideration and things. I think like for probably what would be helpful as well, and I don't know if this is covered in it, Julia, is that where if somebody is, say, they request an easy read or they're looking for that, it's sometimes hard for colleagues to know like, well, who do you go to, because ITS don't provide easy read, so we end up going to Fair Scotland, and there's a cost attached to that, and we're not really sure what that cost is, because obviously you would send it and it would get a quote and stuff. So I think a little bit of like kind of guidance on, well, this is who we would recommend you go to, like you can speak to Fair Scotland for easy read, or you can speak to such and such for this, would help people as well. Sometimes it's that kind of practical bit of it where you're like, actually, how do we do that kind of thing? Yeah. And also, and this is just as I've been reflecting in like my own stuff that I've been doing, when you're doing like the consultation hub stuff, we always put like a happy to translate thing in there. And sometimes I find, like, for our transport kind of colleagues, that's quite difficult because, you know, you guys are talking about like major changes and you've got your images there and stuff. And how do you realistically translate that? So it's like support on what actually, you know, that doesn't really work. So maybe you have to think of a different way, or how to present the information in a different way when you're just doing that translation kind of thing. You know, the kind of background, the support and information, and that sometimes it can be really technical and stuff, and like you're going for the plain English and everything, but then how does that actually then translate for like another language or whatever? So those are the kind of things I think that are always kind of bubbling around in my head when it comes to this kind of stuff as well. So yeah, anyway,
I've noted
up.
those down, and
Perfect.
I think those would be really useful to make sure that we're including that into the guidance, because those are real issues for people in terms of it might be that it's difficult to avoid some of those images or diagrams or whatever. But if people are mindful of it, they know that sometimes those are inaccessible or they're difficult to translate, then we're going to hopefully use less of them, and then it's going to make it easier to do that translate process. But
yeah, I think it's just understanding that sometimes, you know, we're not going to hit it right all the time, but we can put things in place where, you know, we're doing our best and we're providing where we can and thinking about these things, and it is on our radar that, you know, we should be doing better or thinking that kind of way and stuff. So yeah,
and
anyway.
Also definitely with that procurement process, and where we don't have a formal procurement process, what people should do, I think that's also absolutely relevant for the guidance.
Perfect, thanks. Anne-Marie and then Bruce, I've got questions from them.
Thanks. That was really helpful, Julia. Thank you. Really good to see all the work that's been going on around this. I have a couple of questions and linked into some of the discussion as well. I wondered if the Accessible Communication Group has included members from minority ethnic communities with other languages, or whether that's been mainly focused around disability. That's one question. The other one,
sorry, do you mean the Accessibility Commission?
So you mentioned a reference group, I think that.
Oh right, yes, yeah, okay.
Yes. So it was more, it was whether that group had included members of, you know, people who speak other languages. I just think that's, you know, I think that's important here, that balancing the different needs. It's interesting what we've just been saying about images. From my point of view, and that it was a question that I was going to ask anyway about the council website specifically, but it applies to other things as well. Images can be incredibly helpful for people who speak another language in terms of communicating information very directly without the need for any language. So for me, there's a bit of a tension there if we're going down the route of avoiding using images. And which I think is worth thinking about a bit more. The other thing I wanted, totally agree with you about the use of plain English and how the knock-on that has for other accessibility features, whether that's text-to-speech software in terms of the way that software copes with long sentences, for example, and the fluency of the readback on that, but also importantly for digital translation. So the translation tools that's on the Recite Me on the council website, for example. So the quality of the English, the standard English communication is going to make these other accessible features more or less effective, and that's why that's so important. And getting that right, it is good. The guidance around plain English has been there for a long time. We haven't quite managed, I think, to get into that habit, and it's a skill to write in plain English. It's not an easy thing to do, actually. So I'd be interested to know how we're going to improve improve that across the piece. Yeah, these were the key things that I wanted to mention. And just going back to the council website, I don't know if that's something that you've looked at, and what I've picked up on is the lack of images there, which I think there's a tension there between images and no images. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. The first one about the reference group and whether there are people that are from ethnic minority communities or whose English is not their first language. Yes, it's a wide range of people that are on that reference group. I'm very much acknowledging that when we talk about inclusive communication, we're not just talking about disability. This can be across the different protected characteristics, and it can also be permanent or temporary issues around barriers to communication. So it is the whole shebang, which is why it's really important to look at inclusive communication across the board, rather than thinking, oh, we've got somebody who's got a disability on this group, we need to do something. We should actually be thinking about it anyway. So yes, we do have representation there. On the issue about images, yes, I totally agree with you. So I talked about diagrams sometimes being inaccessible, particularly when we look at committee reports. There can be sometimes graphs and things that are quite inaccessible and difficult to translate, but images can be very helpful, and also standardized symbols can be very helpful as well. We have done some work on that in the past, and I think it'll be an issue that we raise as something that we need to look at in the future. But the guidance would certainly be talking about both of those things, the use of being very careful with the use of images and diagrams and graphs, because sometimes it can make it more unhelpful, and sometimes it can be it can make it more accessible. In terms of the council website, we haven't got a plan to overhaul the council website or audit it at the moment in terms of their use of its use of images, but it's certainly something that we might want to think about in terms of our new framework and wanting to continue to make council services more accessible. The website might be something that we want to look at further. And then, yeah, the third point about plain English, just agreeing with you about everything that you've said. It acts as a catalyst to make more things accessible once we get into the way of it, but it does take a lot of practice, and it's a developed skill, isn't it? So thanks.
Julia. Ruth, we'll take your comment because I know your hand's been up for a while there, and then what we'll do is we'll move on to Pamela and Gary, and then we can pick this back up, because I think this is something that everyone has got comments on, interested in, particular ways, which is amazing kind of thing. So Ruth, do you want to?
Thanks, Emma. Yeah, it was a really quick question. Just my own experience of using Word and being able to check your documents based on that accessibility checker. I don't know if anyone else has, I'm presuming everyone's seen that, but if you haven't, it's a real lifesaver actually, to just help make sure that what you're doing with images and text conforms to accessibility requirements for us. But it was a question, I suppose, about technology in the future and whether or not we could be relying a little bit more on the help that, say, for example, AI could give us around just sense checking some of the work we do against plain English and or easy read as well, and whether there's an opportunity for our digital services to get involved in supporting that potentially as we go forward.
I don't think we have anyone here from digital, Ruth, but that is a good point, and it's something that I'm aware that we kind of probably need to pick up on with the policy that they were thinking of putting in place and stuff. So leave that with me, and I'll come back to you guys with some info that I get from our colleagues in digital. Cool. Finally, Heather's just asking, Julia, are there young people on your reference group as well?
I would need to go and check that. The reference group was created by Communication Inclusion People for the national guidance. So I don't have a list of everybody that's on the group, but I will check that. What I would say is that we have engaged with young people as part of the development of our new framework. And so some of the information that we gathered about what we need to do has been informed by the voice of young people, but I will check it for the reference group.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Pamela, I'll hand over to you now.
Hi everyone, thanks Emma. Just want to apologise because my camera isn't working, so you won't be able to see me, but I'm here. And also I did have my presentation on Julia's really good format, which was accessible and all the rest of it. But unfortunately I'm having issues seeing my notes and that kind of thing on it, so I'm having to use my older presentation, which doesn't have this great a format as Julia's, and it's without pictures, so it's not quite as exciting as Julia's presentation, so I do apologise, but I'll do my best. So today I'm going to be talking about, bear with me a second, hate crime, which is the second interim outcome. Get organised here. There we go. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Great, thanks. So yes, so we have, so the second interim outcome on hate crime is that people in Edinburgh feel more confident reporting hate crime, and victims of hate crime are supported. So we have a public sector equality duty to foster good relations and address the needs of individuals and communities affected by hate crime, and to promote understanding and prevent future incidents. So in line with this, we've been conducting extensive engagement work over the last year in order to link equalities with citizen experience. And this engagement work has allowed us to then think about setting longer term outcomes. So we've had lots of conversations with services and stakeholders across the Islamophobia and supporting LGBT+ communities work streams, and they have highlighted the need for better understanding of local level data on hate crime reporting, which would enable more targeted interventions and improve support for victims. So back in March, elected members agreed that there is a need to improve hate crime reporting in a more coordinated way, and also to improve the promotion of support for victims that are at higher risk of hate crime. Oh, next one. Yeah, so at committee, it was agreed that we need to work towards a data-driven approach to tackle hate crime in local communities. There is a need to improve hate crime reporting in a more coordinated way across the partnership. So we will continue to use a holistic community safety approach by facilitating ongoing engagement with Police Scotland and communities to build trust around reporting hate crime. And this will be done through the delivery of a series of community-based workshops that will be held in partnership with Equality and Rights Network members to explain how the Council and partners record and report incidents. We will also be looking at how we can improve officers' understanding of hate crime, especially those working in housing, and how to support victims that are engaged with council services. And so this will be led by findings from engagement with partners and citizens, which will explore what support should be available to victims of hate crime. It will also include training for officers, which will consist of 2 strands. So their awareness of hate crime and how to report appropriately, and how to support victims through a trauma-informed lens. So we'll be creating an accessible hate crime information webpage on the council website with partnership campaign as well. This is, I just created a wee timeline of you know, when the work will be taking place and that kind of thing. So from April to June we formed the working group, but it was identified that we actually needed to establish a current picture of hate crime in Edinburgh. So I spent most of the summer engaging with various colleagues and stakeholders, identifying gaps, what we currently do and what we can do better. So about 2 weeks ago, we held our second working group meeting and used this information gathered during engagement to agree on next steps. So from October to December, we'll be implementing actions such as training and engagement sessions, and a business bulletin with an update will be going to P&S in October. Then from January to March, we'll be carrying out evaluation. How, you know, have we achieved what we set out to do? We will work alongside colleagues from Police Scotland and those in community safety to establish a baseline for measuring improvement throughout the year. And we will then need to report to Policy and Sustainability Committee on the successful delivery of this outcome in March. next year. And that's basically a kind of a quick update on where we're at with that outcome. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, more than happy to take those now.
Great, thank you, Pamela. What we'll do is, if we just move on, Gary, if you're okay to carry on, and then we will take questions at the end for everyone from Gary after Gary's done his bit.
No worries.
Gary, over to you. You're on mute just now, darling.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Snedden. I work alongside Lucy Pearson, our lead for Equalities, and also Julia and Pam. And can you see I've just put the sharing thing on there, so I don't know if you can see it or not, but
we can see your notes and stuff, Gary. So it's like we can see. Are you working from two screens?
Yeah. I think I was
we can see one
you
screen
had the main one up earlier. Right, hold on. Right, let's see. If I can get it to work, then I'm just going to speak over it anyway. But I'd hope to show you a slide with just phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Let me just go into the PowerPoint thing. Hold on. Just give me a second. What I'll do is I'll just put it into presenting Teams. Is that working now? Should be. Isn't it wonderful technology, isn't it?
Working now.
Right, great.
Well, I've got Julia's one. Is that right? Yeah. Is that all?
Yeah, I'm gonna skip though. Right. See, I thought we were using. Somebody was going to flick the slides, so I do apologise. Right. So you should be seeing that outcome phases of work. Number 15.
Nope.
You need to move it to number 15. You're on number 1.
Oh, right.
So if you just push it through to number 15, you'll be fine. We're still on 1.
1 second. Right, I'm trying not to get kerfuffled. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk you through it anyway, because there's no point in the slides are really immaterial. Really, it's what you say that matters. I always think. So I was going to give you a recap on the first few phases that we've gone through in terms of our evolution towards forming the new EDI framework, which will kick in next year. I'm just going to get this unshared so that it's not distracting. You'll just have to put up with my face instead.
It's a nice face. That's fine.
Is it coming up with me?
There we go.
Yep.
Have we lost Gary?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've lost him.
Give him a couple more seconds. In that case, has anyone got any questions for Pamela while we're waiting for Gary? Miriam, do you want to jump in?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, if you move your mic a wee bit closer, that would be great.
I'm not sure if it's very good. Can you hear me now?
You're a wee bit clearer. Yes, you're good.
Yeah, so it's just to say that for the Community Grants Fund, we recently had a go at doing a simple guide. We decided not to call it Easy Read because there are specific conventions around that, but we've had a stab at it. And the plan is to kind of discuss it and get some of our grant recipients to have a look at it and to see whether it would be helpful for them in kind of enabling their beneficiaries to understand a bit more about the grant. I mean, my background is that I have done quite a bit of work with people with learning disabilities. So when we were drafting it, I was thinking all the time, you know, how would I work with somebody with like literacy difficulties, learning difficulties on this, you know, using it to read through with them. So it'll be really interesting to perhaps have some kind of a reference group that we could actually put that to And I look forward to getting a bit more information about this and having some kind of procedures that we can follow, because we did use the information that we could get our hands on through the council website, and that linked us to an external document which we used. So I can share it later on. I'm just trying to update it at the moment on the website. We did actually put it on the website because the fund is open at the moment, but we are aware that we do need to get people to have a look at it. It does actually have images in it, and it has simple wording, and it has a little glossary at the end. And we did put it through a screen reader and stuff. So, yeah.
Shall I respond to that? Yeah. Yeah, that sounds really good. In terms of the reference group, it's set up by another organisation and we're tapping into it for our guidance at the moment. And it's not a permanent fixture, that reference group. However, I don't know if you've worked with the Equality and Rights Network at all, but that is an organisation, it's a network based within Volunteer Edinburgh. Its membership is a base of people who either have experience working with different communities, have lived experience of protected characteristics, have an interest in equality. And so that resource is available for people who wish to tap into it. Obviously, we fund them for a certain number of hours, and so we can't have every single service tapping into their expertise. But I would say for strategic pieces of work, for big pieces of work, it would make absolute sense to run it by the Equality and Rights Network. And so what I would suggest is if you get in touch with Lucy Pearson, who manages that contract, you would be able to speak with her about accessing the Equality and Rights Network to just get some feedback on that guidance. I think that would make sense.
I think we also sort of concluded, you could do a lot with this simple guide, or you could do more work to make it, specifically easy read. But actually what we need to do is look at the guidance for the fund, the main guidance, and try to simplify that. And that's more along the lines of, a lot of the complex information that this organisation has to convey. It is actually quite a big task to look at that properly, because that has to be much more detailed. So it might be the case that that's actually more the content that we need the support with.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, thank you. That's been a good presentation today.
Okay, thank you.
Gary is back. He's back with
us. Yeah, I'm back.
So.
I had a computer crash and everything.
So we're just taking questions there until you got yourself sorted. Are you okay now, Gary, to carry on?
I think so. I'm going to just put this on yet again. Here we go. You probably up with the wrong slide, but okay, and I'll go wrong to the right one. Talk about stress. Yeah, but anyway, so the first phase of our work was late last year, and essentially what we did then is we decided to start with a clean slate. So we essentially started with looking at what the data and what the evidence was telling us. Now you should be able to see phase 1, phase 2, yeah. Phase 3. Good.
It's working.
Thank heavens for that, right? So yeah, we started off a clean slate late last year. I can't believe it's a year already. And we sort of said, so what is the evidence and what is the data telling us about protected groups in Scotland and in the city? And we reached out obviously to lots of different data, did a lot of desk research and whatever. And we decided the best approach at that stage was to call in as many sort of community groups and representative organisations that day in, day out deal with the sort of people that we were looking at. So in conjunction with the Equality and Rights Network, who are based under Volunteer Edinburgh in Leith, we carried out some pre-engagement conversations. And we managed to we reached out to quite a lot of organisations, but our take-up was fairly good. But 1 in 4 came back to us. So we had about 47 different organisations that represented all the different sort of protected groups and so on, and asked them, what is it like talking to the to the council, what are we like in terms of how we reach out to people, and we were kind of like sense checking what the evidence was telling us as well. So that gave us a kind of a sort of broad understanding of what the kind of barriers are that people come up against, what sort of challenges that they face when they reach out to the council for help or support and so on. And then sort of after that learning piece, what we did is we decided it was time to obviously reach out to people themselves and get those lived experiences and hear from people face to face about what they were up against and so on. So over the period of earlier this year, sort of January right up to about April, we essentially talked to about 300 plus people at least in a variety of settings, basically trying to reach out to them in their own sort of communities and in their own areas, also in schools, in libraries, and in places like community centres and so on. So that was the reach out part. And sort of just after that, we also ran a survey as well, I should say, an online survey where we asked similar questions around access, engagement, and what the council's like to deal with. In the third phase, which sort of took place in the last few months, what we've done is we looked at all that information, what we've learned, and we also conducted an elected members roundtable as well to get the elected members on board with understanding what we were learning. And we went to committee with what we've discovered on the 19th of August, just a wee while ago, to the Policy and Sustainability Committee. And we essentially asked them to scrutinise what we'd learned and what we were proposing in terms of taking it forward towards a new EDI framework, which will kick in the new year. So I'm just going to go to the next slide. So I want to tell you a bit here about how we translated what we learned into the actual outcome statements that were proposed for the EDI framework. We basically took the first one as being, council services are easier to access and engage with, and the needs of different groups are equally considered. I've got a question for you all just now. I mean, if we were going to say this statement, the council is excellent at communicating with all of its citizens and visitors, and the council really meets the different needs of the people that it serves. I don't know what that makes you think, but if we were to ask that sort of question, would we, as council officers and so on, would we be able to say that that was true? So that's kind of like the crux of what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to shift our culture towards understanding that people have different needs. Sometimes they're very complex, and we need to, as an organisation, begin to understand what those different needs are and how we can best support and how we can best deliver not only the way that we talk and the way that we communicate, which Julia has been talking about, making it as accessible as possible, but also making it as real as possible and ensuring that we have an understanding that intersectionally there are a lot of different people out there, and it's becoming an ever diversifying population in Edinburgh, and we as an organisation need to get ahead of that curve. So the second outcome is all about how we engage and how we do engagement in a way that's meaningful, that it matters to people, it's impactful, and people can feel a sense of like, they're being brought in and that their needs and their aspirations and so on are being considered. And I've got an ask of you in a moment about that outcome too. And the third one is about just how we as an organisation understand the people that we serve and how we collect information and how we build that intelligence going forward. So it's all about equipping us to be able to make informed decisions about the policies and the strategies that we decide upon on the basis of proper intelligence and make sure that we can treat people fairly and equally. So I really click to there. So I guess I wanted to have just a very quick, I know I've not got much time, so I just wanted to have a very quick discussion about how we would, in that outcome too, how we would be able to make our engagement much more accessible, how we could begin to design our engagement alongside people and take their ideas and their interests into consideration, how we can make the engagement that we do that wee bit more exciting, a bit more enticing, so it attracts as many people as possible from different age groups, and with different requirements and different needs, and how we can also ensure that we make it as consistent as possible, particularly in light of what Julia was saying about us being as accessible and as inclusive as we can as an organisation. And how can we do it with a sense of purpose, so that we're actually reaching out to people and they can see that we are taking their needs and their requirements into consideration before doing so. So I just wanted to ask if anybody out there has any sort of ideas or any opinions or so on as to how, as an organisation, we might go about doing this, so that we can build that into our deliverables plan and into our plan going forward. I just might as well say that some of the ideas that we're having so far is that we obviously want to perhaps review the existing current consultation and engagement approaches across the organisation, just to identify, you know, what communities are not being reached, so we've got a better understanding where the gaps are. We might want to look at strengthening partnership working, just to continuously understand the needs of communities to empower them on how to engage with the council. We might want to look at looking at the methods that we take up and make sure they're sort of joined up and they're shared across the various parts of the organisation, just to try and reduce that sort of, it would appear, lots of consultation fatigue and so on that's going on. You know, the same sort of stuff. We're just asking the same kind of questions perhaps there, and we're also asking it over there. Again, how we co-design and how we co-facilitate the engagement in partnership with community groups and organisations, and how we improve that overall experience, as was said, in terms of like ensuring the activities are accessible and inclusive, and perhaps looking at centralising the amount of money that we spend on this stuff, because it's not cheap to, you know, to reach out and do accessible communication. We need to be able to maybe put a central pocket of money in there and say that's the money that we're going to spend on it. We could commit to that money, and how we're going to embed a new sort of impact assessment regime, so that it really does goes across all the directorates and puts communities' needs at the heart of all of our decision making. And again, how we're maybe going to evaluate our progress on these sort of things each year by, say, doing like an annual community-based survey or whatever, and how we're going to strengthen the inclusive practices across our governance and our decision-making processes. So these are the areas that we're thinking about where we can make the improvements. But I thought it'd be good maybe for this group just to say, if you're thinking there's anything that we're not considering, or if there's stuff that you just think that this would be a great idea, why don't we consider this? And I'm throwing it out to you now just for a very short discussion to see if there's any ideas, any burning ideas that you have. And once again, sorry about the cock-ups at the beginning. Over to you. Anne-Marie.
Hi, thanks, Gary. It's really good to hear that sort of bigger picture that you were talking about there and the different levels, and so that this is all woven through everything that we do, specifically in terms of how we engage with people around the outcomes. I think the approach that you took to the pre-engagement from the conversation that we had with yourself and Lucy after that, and I imagine that you had similar conversations with others. I think the approach of locating, reaching out physically, as in going and talking to people. I wonder if libraries and schools, in particular community hubs, are the places. I think for that conversation to happen in places where people feel comfortable and secure and can communicate directly, with that being guided by everything that Julie was saying about inclusive communication. I think for me that those would be key things.
Yeah, I think we're not particularly good at communicating the why we do what we do. I mean, that's that kind of feedback loop part, you know, the part where we go back to people, go back to communities and so on, and explain, look, this is where we've arrived at this particular strategy, or this is the, you know, this is the way that we're thinking. And whether or not we re-involve, open up the conversation again, that's kind of like came across in the pre-engagement findings. You know, we are, people say, well, wow, how did you come to that conclusion? Why do you decide to do it that way? Because that's kind of the first part, is that, you know, people want to influence what the council does, because they have a vested interest in what we do. So the communication and the feedback loops is something that we definitely need to improve. And as you say, Anne-Marie, in the area, and going to people and talking to them in where they feel comfortable and they're in their own settings or they're in their own communities, is really important as well. Nikat? Sorry, Julia.
Sorry, it's okay. No.
Sorry, Nikat, I've picked the wrong number as usual.
I'll just throw out some sort of ideas. One would be to get a bus and call it the Buzz Bus, and then make it brightly coloured and really fun, and drive it to the communities, and then the community consultations that you're doing across the city, people actually drop into the bus. So yes, you can go to the libraries or whatever, but this would sort of just be a bit more fun, and it could cross over into other things. It's come up before. The idea it came up on research that people talk more a little bit if they're in a bus, and if they move from A to B, so the bus could move from A to B through this, they actually start talking. One idea. One more practical, down to earth idea is to develop a GIS layer where, if people are going to actually do a community consultation for a particular project, like a road scheme or an active travel scheme, that you can see the extent of that consultation, so that somebody else can come into the system and go, oh, what other consultations are going on in this ward this month? Oh, look, there's one for somebody's doing this one, somebody's doing this one, and you can see it on a plan. Yes. Rather than just, you know, there is a consultation going on by active travel. If you look into the details, you might find out, but actually you can see it, so people can very quickly maybe contact the other officer and say, oh, by the way, you're going on Thursday to that consultation, could I hop in and add my bit into yours? So that we don't, because quite often there have been problems with doubling up in consultations across the city. So there's two quick ideas.
Thanks, Julie. You know, I do like the idea of a Buzz Bus, or whatever you would want to call it. We definitely need ideas of that ilk, you know, as an organisation. We need to get, as I said, ahead of the curve. So the only way we'll do that is when we modernise and we start looking at what really does bring people out and interest people and so on. So, and also that thing about GIS, the layering and so on of data, and that outcome 3 is all about how we get smarter as an organisation at using the tools that are at disposal to understand people and to keep, you know, that as fresh and as alive as it can be, rather than allowing it, our understanding and our kind of intelligence, to get dated. So we're not really understanding what's going on out there in the sticks, as it were. Now I've got Nikat.
So Nikat, then April, then Serena, and then we'll move on to Ruth, because she's still to cover IIA.
Emma, are you happy to do this bit?
That's fine. You're terrible with numbers. That's fine. Nikat, over to you.
Hi. So my idea was along the line of what Julie was saying, but I think maybe on top of that, I'm envisaging, if I was going to do a consultation, it would be really good to have a almost like a flow chart with a little bit of a tree diagram. So you start with a flow chart to say and put in like what you have to do, why you're doing it, and how you're going to do it. And within the how you're going to do it, the considerations of, you know, like protected characteristics and trying to reach all the community. So you list it out. So people will say, yes, I've managed to find a community with, you know, the disabled organization that have, or BME community or LGBT community. So you can tick, and then you'll see the gaps straight away. Oh, right, that's missing out there. A little bit about the communication as well, how you're going to communicate. So that will come into the accessible communication. So almost like a flow chart, systematic. And within that, we can thread in Julie's idea as well to say, you know, where that information about other consultation is sitting. So you can go into that hub to say, oh, 5 other consultations are happening. I can jump on the back of that, or they're already covering this, so I don't need that. So just like a big flow chart that you can cover all the things. So that was my thinking.
Yeah. So Nikat, just to cover, we have the consultation and engagement framework that's on the ORB, which basically takes you from the start of the project and what you should be considering throughout. So I'll share that with the network again, just so that you've got that easy to find. We also have a consultation log that colleagues should be going into and inputting in what projects they're working on at the moment or have got upcoming. And again, the idea of that is so that like other colleagues can then go in and be like, oh, like NICAT's working in the same area. I wonder if we could like join forces and piggyback or do some kind of work together in that kind of local community and stuff. So I'll send the links for that there. And we're also really open to like feedback from anyone. So if there's anything that you're like, actually, do you know what? Like, I feel like maybe you're missing there's a gap here or anything, please let us know, because we're always continually reviewing the framework and everything to make sure that it's suitable for you guys to use and it's helping you the best way that it can. So we'll share the links and then get back to us if you've got any other ideas or anything like that. April.
I guess just a couple of things just on that log. I think it's great that it exists. I think awareness of it is perhaps a bit limited, and I wonder if there's a way that we can like get comms to do an internal campaign. I'm sure there's probably been them in the past. I wonder if it's an opportune time to do kind of another push of encouraging across the piece that's completed. I'm having to do a similar thing, not just for council, but across the entire Edinburgh partnership. Because as we build towards a new local outcome improvement plan, we're going to do kind of an integrated community engagement review, wherein we gather together engagement that's taken place across the partnership over the preceding 12 months and glean from that what we've heard, so that when we do go out to engage, we don't ask those same questions again. And I think that that's what Julie is saying, is like, this is an opportunity to join up engagement, but also to not repeat the questions that people have been asked just in the past 12 months. And so the idea of having to do that within the council is quite daunting. Having to do that across the partnership, which includes many organisations, is slightly overwhelming, to be honest. But if there's a way that, and if anyone's got any ideas about the way that we can do that better, then, let me know.
Thanks, April. That is a good point about like kind of awareness and stuff. Maybe there is something we can do like in the future about kind of just like an article in Newsbeat or something. We'll look into that. Thank you. Serena, we'll finish with you and then we'll move on to Ruth, because I'm sure she's desperate to tell us about IIAs. So.
Hiya. Mine isn't more so of an idea, but more so a question almost. So I work within registration services, and I feel like there is a huge accessibility issue in terms of ethnic minority groups registering births. When we get a lot of birth registrations that require a translator, but we don't find out about them needing a translator until they've booked an appointment, we're on a call with them, and then we have to postpone the registration until we can get a translator. So it's more so, I don't know who I'm asking the question to, but more so, is there anything that you guys think we should be doing, or is there any ideas from anybody on how we can make it more accessible for those people?
I could just quickly say, Serena, that is actually a perfect example of the kind of things that we were hearing, but we were hearing it obviously from the organisations and from the individuals. We don't get the thing we expected, or we don't understand how this works. We're not particularly good at communicating what we offer people as well. That was another area that was highlighted. I'm not sure if I've got the answers yet for that, but I know that right. Lucy's been working closely with Neil Jameson and so on in the contact centre areas. They're looking really closely at all this stuff, so it will definitely be being considered, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah. Anne-Marie, we're going to move on, because I'm really aware that Ruth is wanting to cover IIAs with us as well, and we're already kind of eating into her time. So if you've got any questions, pop it in the chat, and if we don't pick it up just now, I'll get an answer for you, kind of thing. So thank you. Ruth, sorry about that. We will now move to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Emma. And my slides should be appearing. If someone can nod to see if they can see them, okay?
They're there, we can see them.
Brilliant, thanks very much. Right, okay, I'm aware of time, so I shall go through these fairly quickly, okay? So good morning, everyone. So I'm Ruth Baxendale, and I work in the Insight team along with Pamela and David and Emma.
and I'm the corporate lead for the Integrated Impact Assessment Toolkit. And I also deliver training on how to carry out IIAs, both in-house and in partnership with our neighbouring local authorities and Health and Social Care Partnership and NHS Lothian. But today's presentation is not about IIA training. Instead, I wanted to update you on what's been happening with the review of the IIA toolkit. So I can just ask a quick question. Does everyone know what the IIA is? Okay, I see lots of people nodding, so that's great. But just to remind you, so the IIA is the Council's toolkit, which helps us to consider the potential impacts of our proposals, negative and positive, on people with protected characteristics, human and children's rights, people who are socio-economically disadvantaged, and impacts on climate and nature. And the reasons we do IIAs is it helps us ensure that our proposals are fair for everyone. It helps us to improve our proposals as we actually develop them. And it also helps us meet our legal requirements, of which there are many. And I'm not going to go into those just now. So just to give you some background information about the review. So the Insight team carried out a review of the II toolkit. I think it was last year or even started the year previously. And this is to look at the strengths and weaknesses of the current process, to really look at what's working well and what's not working. And then alongside this, internal audit carried out a review to assess the design and operation of the key controls in the IIA toolkit. So really looking at sort of the compliance with IIAs. So along with this feedback and recommendations and actions from the internal audit report, this helped us to produce a revised version of the II toolkit, and this is aiming to improve the usability of the guidance and templates, improve the quality of IIAs, and also improve the quality assurance of IIAs. So the revised toolkit, so what have we done? Well, at the moment, we have two fairly long documents. One is the IIA guidance, which includes the summary report template, which you use to record your assessment. And the second document is the supporting information document, which has information on legal duties, on each of the population groups, and issues to consider when making your assessment. So we've combined these two documents into one guidance document, and we have summarised a lot of the information and presented it in a format which we hope is easier to understand and follow. And so really, and again, it's just important to say, we haven't changed the aims of the IIA. The key steps of carrying out an IIA are exactly the same. It's just presented in a much more user-friendly format. We've also updated the guidance to help you decide if you need to do an IIA, and we've introduced a new template to record the decision. If you do decide that you don't need to do an IIA, we have a new template to record this decision, and this is something you would retain for your own records. And we have updated the guidance on the key steps of how to complete an IIA and produced a new template to record the outcome of your IIA. So for those of you who are familiar with doing IIAs, we've actually taken out the IIA checklist and we've embedded these prompts into the template. So you're really only looking to fill out one document. And instead of filling out the long evidence table that we currently have, we've embedded evidence sections throughout the template. And this is with the aim of helping you focus on what evidence you need, focusing on relevant evidence. And this also gives you the opportunity to show how you've used that evidence in making your assessment. The revised II toolkit will also have a link to a PowerPoint presentation, and this is to help you facilitate an IIA meeting. So it's basically just taking you through the main steps of how to facilitate an IIA meeting. We've included a list of websites to help you source evidence, and this would include a link to the Consultation Hub feedback. We've heard a lot about consultations from Gary and Julia and Pamela, and we have a wealth of information out there. So if we make it easier for people to access that information, anything we can do to help that, I think will be great for colleagues, especially when they're looking for evidence on issues for their own particular IIA. We've also included information on the kinds of issues faced by people with protected characteristics, and this will help you consider the potential impacts. And we've included information in each of the legal requirements as well. So having the easier guidance to follow should help with improving the quality of IIAs, but we've also put in some other measures. So we have set up a new peer support group to provide support for budget proposal leads to carry out their budget IIAs. And we're also setting up a new quality assurance group. This will consider a sample of completed IIAs. This is just going to be a small group. We'll meet a couple of times a year, not necessarily the same people. It could be different people each time. And we'll just have a look at a few IIAs, really looking at the sort of examples of best practice and any common errors. And then we'll look at the best way of sharing that information with colleagues in order to help them complete IIAs. But we'll do it in a way that's anonymised. We don't want to identify any specific IIAs or colleagues. We wouldn't do that. And the quality assurance process remains the same. It's the relevant head of service or service director that would quality assure and sign off your IIA. And to help them and also to help you, whoever's leading the IIA, we've added a new quality assurance checklist as well. And consultations, they have a two-stage sign-off for IIAs which are being completed alongside their consultations. So high-impact consultations must publish their draft IIA or a statement saying why an IIA is not necessary, and heads of service will perform a two-stage-based sign-off on IIAs pre and post-consultation instead of a single sign-off. So next steps, there's lots of training and support for colleagues in completing IIAs. At the moment, we're still engaging with a number of colleagues on the draft version, and then we're going to test it out. We're aiming for a soft launch by the end of the year, and then we'll be promoting the updated guidance through comms, through Newsbeat, and we'll also be running some extra training sessions, perhaps some drop-in workshops, just to go over the new templates and the new guidance. But we do have lots of support for staff in completing IIAs. We have the Equality, Diversity and Rights Advisors. We have about 30 just now, and these are based in service areas. And there's a link there to the ORB. We also deliver IIA training. So some of you may have attended the joint training that we've delivered with the Lothian II team. And I also deliver in-house training as well. And there's lots and lots of information on My Learning Hub. We have a couple of overview modules of the IIA process, lots of information about equality, poverty, rights, and climate nature as well. And then finally, I put some links here that you might find useful if you're doing IIAs. There's the link to the completed and published IIAs and the IIA directory. There's a link to the guidance in the ORB, and there's a link to the consultation policy as well. We also have the Equality and Rights Network that may help you carry out any engagement or focus groups that you may want to organise as part of collating the evidence for your IIAs. And there's lots of useful information in the improvement services and the Equality and Human Rights Commission Assessing Impact Guidance document. And then finally, the EQIA Maintenance for All. This is a little video that the Scottish Government produced on the process of carrying out an IIA. So if you do have time, it's only about 10 minutes, so that's worth a watch. Okay, so thank you very much. That was really quick, but I was very much aware of time, and I wanted to leave some time for any questions. So I shall stop sharing, and if anyone's any questions about the updated version, please let me know.
I just want to say thanks, Ruth. It looks like you've done loads of work. Just, I think it's really good that we've combined the two different documents there. Because I used to find like that, like collating the evidence and then having the actual IIA separately was quite. It's just nice to have them both together, isn't it? And it's really good that and the presentation stuff and like the links to where like people can go for like kind of to find kind of data or information about groups and stuff. That's all really helpful. So yeah, well done. It's like a great piece of work kind of thing. So
yeah, it's almost there. We've still got receiving feedback from sort of key colleagues, but it's and really the aim is just to make it look a bit more user friendly. And just easier to use, simplified. And again, we've talked about plain English, so really hoping it's coming across a lot easier for people to understand and follow.
Yeah, because that's the thing, sometimes it can be quite daunting, can't it? Like when you're thinking, oh my goodness, I have to carry out an IIA. So yeah. Sorry, Julie, off you go.
No, not at all. Just to say, for people who are not familiar with the term just transition, I've been working with Ruth on that side of the IIA. So just transition is looking at sort of equity being fair in climate, all projects around climate and nature. So you'll be really excited because there's a new section in the IIA about just transitions. And we're looking to use personas to help with answering that question, are you being fair to this individual? So Ruth and I have been developing that, and we've been working with our other colleagues in Equality around that. So we're calling them the Edinburgh personas, as in EDINBURGH, for fun, to make it a little bit more interesting. So if you're not familiar with the term just transition, there is an explanation in that, but that is one of the changes. So it's been really interesting working with Ruth and getting further trained in what IIAs are about.
Yeah, and Julie, there's still the climate fresk training as well that colleagues can come along to as well.
Yeah,
so I didn't include that in my link, but yeah, if you just search up climate fresk when you're in My Learning Hub, and you can register for climate change training as well.
Absolutely. So Sophie in the team, and the climate team, is the one who runs she's our communications officer. She wasn't unfortunately unable to make it today. So she's the one who looks at the climate fresk. But we are also trying to look at that because some people came out of some of those training sessions feeling quite, but to be honest, feeling quite depressed. So we're going to try and look at that to make sure that we're more empowering people with what they can do, rather than feeling overwhelmed with what is happening in the climate, which sounds very negative sometimes.
Anything else from anyone?
Just added, Emma, we do have a training course arranged for 6th of November. This is one of our joint training courses, but we will be organising new dates for next year. So they'll be promoted through Newsbeat.
Great. Ruth, if you have got anything that you want to share with me, I can send that out with the follow-up email that I send around the network with the recording of today's thing as well.
Thank you.
So we can share that with everyone. And I'll just like to say thanks to everyone for coming along, and thanks so much to the Equalities team and Ruth for kind of holding the session for us. It was really interesting. And yeah, it's like relates to all of our work in all different kind of ways and aspects. So that's really good. This is September. So I'm thinking we may have another network event just before Christmas. If not, it'll be in the new year. So watch the space and we'll get the date in the diary. If anyone has any ideas of what you would like covered at any future sessions, please just drop me an email and let me know, and we can see what we can get sorted out for you. Or if you just want to come to the group and share work that you've been doing or anything, you're more than welcome to as well. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and we will share this information with you and see you at the next event. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks very much,
Thank
Emma.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.